We find Chelsea with a bunch of shiny new toys and no clue how to use them. Once again, history is repeating itself under Lampard's watch. What's poppin', everybody? I'm Jeff Wall and this is Lingo Sports. Today we break down one of the more intriguing trends in the world of football. Clubs hiring iconic players as managers. Why does it happen so much? Is it good, bad, awful, horrific? Should your club be hiring an icon as manager? Well, without further rambling, let's get into it. First, we'll take a trip down memory lane. Although not for me, I wasn't born yet. One of the best examples of this was over 30 years ago when Johan Cruyff took over Barcelona. Cruyff had a stint with his boyhood club Ajax. If you know your football, I don't have to explain to you how important he is to Ajax, but he may be equally as important to Barcelona. In fact, I would even say his impact was greater in Catalonia as a manager. The club had not reached the heights back when Cruyff was a player. They'd won just a single league title since then and never reached a European Cup final. In 1988, Cruyff returned and everything changed. The Dutch boss brought the concepts of total football that his manager, Rinus Michels, introduced to him at both Ajax and Barca. Aggressive pressing, positional play, and teaching what was really a positionless style of football where all players need to be equally comfortable on the ball. Johan Cruyff updated this philosophy to his time of coaching. He's also in large part one of the main reasons for the evolution of football we see today. And to ensure this system was easier to keep in place, Cruyff wanted his club to build around youth academy players, as Ajax did when he and many others came up through the ranks in Amsterdam. This helped to reshape La Masia into what we know it as today. Every player playing like the first team, the same formation, the same drills, until every player fit the Barcelona mold. Of course, he also brought on-pitch success, 4 straight La Liga titles, a Spanish Cup, and the club's first ever European Cup win. So Cruyff set a very high expectation for any player transitioning to a manager. It's a tough precedent for anybody to follow though. We can look a little bit further south though with their most heated rivals in Real Madrid and how they got on with one of their club icons. Zinedine Zidane took over for Rafa Benitez, who was dealing with a Real that was coming off a season-long Champions League hangover. But Zidane was brought in mainly to do what Rafa could not, get a hold of Ronaldo and all the Galacticos. The weird thing about this though was Zidane really hadn't had a lot of high-level experience. In fact, the highest he ever had was with the Real Madrid Castilla side. But, as we know, Zizou far surpassed any of our expectations. We can't deny his success. As soon as Zidane took over, the club once again took home the coveted trophy, and again, for 3 straight years of European supremacy. His Champions League pedigree was flawless until this past season, and he always met great teams in every single final. He even brought 2 La Liga titles back to the Spanish capital for the first time since 2011. But he did take over a team with a Champions League trophy under Carlo Ancelotti, a stacked team with peak Cristiano Ronaldo, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Sergio Ramos, and really just too many great players to even count. But in defense of Zidane, Benitez could not lead the very talented side to success. This brings us over to Zinedine Zidane's old club of Juventus, where Andrea Pirlo was brought in to do just that. Andrea Pirlo actually has the least amount of experience out of all the managers we're going to be talking about today. In fact, his lone position, the under-23s Juventus manager, and that lasted just 1 week. Pirlo's results as manager have been less than spectacular. Juventus has been inconsistent in all competitions and are having a tough time getting to the top of the table. Pirlo has been put in a tough situation though. Juventus have won 9 straight Serie A titles. It's been absolute dominance with few exceptions. It's all about winning in Turin. Well, it was until recently. The board has opted to become the Italian Galacticos. Buying players like Ronaldo was the start. Then came more on-pitch success, opting for supposedly a more appealing style. But Sarri ball did not suit the players. he was removed, and in comes Pirlo to save the day, much like Zinedine Zidane. We have to imagine that despite the admiration for Pirlo by the club and the fans, if they don't make it 10 straight, this could be a miserable failure, and it's definitely possible with now a very competitive Serie A. And Pirlo, despite the unfair circumstances, may have his reputation damaged, his mentality damaged forever, and he may never get his fairy tale job. When it comes to fairy tales, few could forget how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saved Manchester United on the 26th of May, 1999. And now the club hope to use Ole Gunnar Solskjaer once again for similar miracles. After Jose Mourinho gutted Manchester United's morale and forgot to stitch things back up, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had to come in and patch things up for Old Trafford. Now you only have to head over to our football playlist to let you know my thoughts on Ole's time as United manager. So I'll just let you do that. But I will give him this. He has patched things up pretty well and brought United back to what the club's culture is supposed to be, which is very important to fans. He's also maintained a much better turnover of players and been more careful with the club's money, something the last few managers failed miserably to do. And of course, at the time of this video, United are on top of the table in the Prem, which is crazy to think, considering this team has looked so disjointed under Ole. But something tells me this won't last. OGS and the Red Devils did bow out of the Champions League group stage, but with PSG and RB Leipzig, United was lucky to get as many points as they did, to be honest. Ole may be the best example of a placeholder manager. He's just there so the fans don't lose their mind while United lose games. We won't have to leave the country as we go down to London and find probably the most disappointing managerial hire of all of them in Frank Lampard with Chelsea. Frank Lampard took the reins at his old club, being one of the club's most iconic players just after Sarri's loan season in London. Due to a transfer ban, Frankie Lampard didn't have a window to work with in his first season, so he opted to use one of the most renowned academies in England, with the likes of Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, and Fikayo Tomori. Lampard brought what many Chelsea fans wanted, finally giving opportunities to homegrown players, a very fast-paced and aggressive style. But the very next season, Lampard abandoned that model, instead going for the typical Chelsea route of spending massive amounts of cash to reshape the team again. An advantage no club has had this past transfer window. Keep in mind, this club is in constant transition due to Roman Abramovich's short-term managers. In the last 6 years, they've gone from Jose Mourinho's tactics to Antonio Conte's style to Sarri ball, now to Lampard style, and each time the starting 11 has looked a little bit different. The philosophy has been in constant flux for the players. So Lampard added even more instability to an unstable situation. A more experienced manager would realize the uphill battle he was making for himself. Instead, we find Chelsea with a bunch of shiny new toys and no clue how to use them. Even after replacing the goalkeeper bust Kepa with Mendy, there was some solidity for a time, but once again, history is repeating itself under Lampard's watch. So I think it's pretty clear why clubs do this. At the bare minimum, you get a manager that comes in, yes, with very little to no resume, but they don't need it because the fans and the club have this history with them. They love them so much that it buys the club time with a placeholder like no other. But of course, especially at these massive clubs, the expectation is to win trophies. And I think a lot of clubs do honestly think that they have the next Cruyff or Zidane under their thumb. But the reality is that no one is like these guys. Now ask yourself the question, should your club hire an icon? Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.